one of the most wickedest, foulest dudes that I've ever came across.
And stop saying a legend as if y'all acknowledged and honored him as a legend when he was here.
But I do know and I do see that this information that he's putting out and getting involved in him and inserting himself into, it's real dangerous. It's not going to end well, y'all.
Although words are cheap, they are deadly, and Wack100 is in Nipsey Hussle's neighborhood. Simply place a wager. From publicly claiming that Nippy wasn't a legend to standing up for the man who killed him, Wack didn't hold back and caused a bigger storm than anyone could have predicted, inciting rage among those who lived and breathed Nip's message. However, when you disparage a man who built his legacy on upholding community values, you're not just insulting a rapper, you're challenging an entire family.
You man, I love you too, get money. Yeah. Period. Nipsey Hussle.
Many fans now claim that Wack100's contempt is a death sentence that is just waiting to be put to death because of South Central's merciless streets. Because Nip's name is revered and going too far might result in death, Wack100 is afraid to stroll those streets without doubting Nip's legendary reputation. In South LA, there are a select few names that are as revered as the Crenshaw legend Nipsey. Hussle is a businessman who defies the obstacles and is a ray of hope for his city. Although Nipsey's name is inscribed on the exact road he previously blazed a trail, it would be risky for someone like Wack100, who is renowned for his controversial opinions and unafraid confrontations, to enter Nipsey's domain. Known for overseeing West Coast icons like The Game and Blueface, Wack100 has established himself as one of the most divisive personalities in hip-hop. He is a businessman, a self-described street commander, and a guy who lives in the tumultuous realm of controversy and viral sound bites.
You know, Wack100 say that right shit, that just make Cuz look weak on hood. You hear me? On hood, it just seemed like Cuz just got wish to get himself.
Man, gotta get on this Wack100, man. All in my comments. You don't run no bloods from the West. You feel me? But since you think you this big Paru, he ain't been in jail in 30, 40 years.
However, Nippy's problems with Wax transcend the usual business drama. They're not limited to arguments about songs or company. It goes further, addressing the core of what it means to be a streetwise man. Just months after Nipsey Hussle's death, in 2019, Wack100 did the unthinkable. He questioned the very status that fans and peers had bestowed upon the late rapper while sitting in a dimly lit studio. It's one thing to criticize someone's business decisions or rap skills, but it's another to bring a deceased man's name into disrepute, especially one as revered as Nippy. Wack died with 1 million followers after leaning into the microphone and speaking in a strong, uncensored tone. No international tours, no platinum hits, no radio smashes.
You got a man who died with 1 million followers and no radio hit platinum plaques.
But to many,
However, many people considered Nippy to be a legendary character whose impact went beyond music. Quackever, the contrarian, didn't buy into the story. Instead, he dissected it, cutting past the sentimentality and going straight to the numbers. He claimed that Nip's mainstream success only increased after his death, driven more by the shock and grief that followed his murder than by any commercial dominance during his lifetime. "Come on, bro," Wack continued, leaning back his fingers and rhythmically tapping the table. Everyone started talking like it was a goddamn Popeye's chicken sandwich. And now he's gone 20 times platinum, radio spinning his songs every hour. Where were you all when he needed you? It was a gut punch to fans, a twist of the knife to those who were still grieving. The backlash was swift and fierce, like a wave crashing against the stubborn rock. Instagram was inundated with posts criticizing Wack, ranging from haters to clout chasers.
They start unfollowing, bro. It's no way in hell, cause you I love for hustle and say, y'all with Nip and all that, but then y'all go sit down with Wack100 and laugh in his face and don't check cuz about saying about Nip.
If this ain't the most backpedaling nigga in America.
Memes proliferate rapidly. Some people make fun of him, while others threaten him directly. Yet it wasn't only fans typing anonymously, it wasn't just about record sales or chart positions. It was about impact. Nippy had redefined what it meant to give back, to uplift a community, and inspire a generation. His inner circle felt the sting of friends who had hustled with him and lived on those same chaw blocks, witnessing his growth firsthand.
So much for the community. He was an artist that really cared and that really always came back to where he was rooted from.
Some rappers who were close to Nipsey responded by expressing their annoyance and doing interviews. Others used a more direct approach, sending out menacing messages that addressed the seriousness of Wack's statements. But Wack remained unfazed and stood by them with a passion that verged on defiance. "I stand on it," he retorted in follow-up interviews, his voice tinged with that signature unapologetic West Coast edge. To him, facts were all that mattered, and for Wack, facts were the only currency that mattered. He would later attend Rolling Loud LA in December 2019, where the atmosphere was charged with an unpredictably raw energy that only occurs when the biggest artists on the West Coast come together in one place. It was the kind of scene where tensions ran high and a backstage altercation could be sparked in an instant. He had made a living by surviving the LA jungle, and this night felt no different until it did. Wack100 was still riding the waves of Wack100 was still riding the waves of backlash from his blunt remarks about Nipsey Hussle's legacy. He was in the middle of it, navigating the tumultuous maze of security guards, artists, and crew members. Despite the whispers and acerbic glances, his demeanor was the same, head high, chest out, that constant scowl etched into his face. Wack's dismissive tone went deeper than industry politics. It pierced the code of loyalty that had defined Nippy's all money in camp, as the story goes. According to all accounts, J-Rock had been simmering with rage ever since Wack first questioned Nip's status, because it was personal. And he had been one of the silent sentinels at Nip's side, moving through the chaos of South Central, a steady presence in the late rapper's circle. J-Rock wasted no time in warnings or posing. Instead, he closed the gap with the fists of an experienced fighter and a locked jaw, determined to send a message that would not be misunderstood. The scene suddenly sprang into action. Shouts were heard, security scurried, and a strong metallic smell of adrenaline thickened the air around them. Witnesses assert J-Rock's fist struck Wack's jaw with a force that was the result of years of frustration. In a move as tactical as it was explosive, J-Rock didn't stay for the aftermath. He slipped into the crowd, blending back into the chaos like a ghost, leaving Wack to pick up the pieces in the hours that followed. Accounts of what happened next vary. Some claim Wack stumbled and lost his balance for a crucial second as the world tilted on its axis, while others claim he dropped outright, the shock of the hit sending him to the cold, unforgiving floor of the backstage corridor. Unverified claims and shaky cell phone footage flooded social media, and rumors of Wack's knockdown spread like wildfire, with each retweet and repost. The already complex web of rap rivalries and street politics got even more complicated. Wack never remained silent and instead took to Instagram, his voice brimming with a mixture of rage and indignation. "If someone touches me," displayed the video instead of just talking and running it back. "No one knocked me out, so you guys want me down. That much." He ran the shaky stream while trembling.
To stay silent, took to Instagram, his voice dripping with a mix of defiance and fury. 300 cameras, he ranted, the grainy feed shaking as he spoke. "If somebody put hands on me, show the footage. Don't just talk, run it back. Ain't nobody knocked me out. Y'all want me down that bad? Keep wishing.
I don't know if y'all hate me that much, but Wack still on top. I don't know who talking about somebody with Wack. Listen, try again.
However, for many in the LA scene, even while he resisted, the story had already gotten out of his grasp. The popular song by J-Rock was a form of fairness, a moment of physical punishment for what they saw to be verbal abuse. It wasn't about the punch. Rather, it was about the idea of the unwritten norms governing decency in a society where words can be just as deadly as guns. As the dust settled, the incident took on a life of its own, becoming a whispered legend in the alleyways and corner stores of Crenshaw's Lawson, with fans analyzing every second of the shaky backstage clips, looking for bruises, a stumble, a slip, or anything to support their version of events. Wack's denials only served to fuel the fire, although Wack was well known for his tough talk and brutal business tactics. J-Rock's fists had brought a different kind of reality into his world. It served as a stark reminder that in the streets of Los Angeles, respect is more than just a word. It's a currency that must be earned with blood and bone. The tension between Wack and Nippy's camp never completely subsided after that night. And by 2022, it had already reached a fever pitch. There was a leaked phone conversation, a moment of offhand bravado that turned into something much darker. Speaking to fellow podcaster Hassan Campbell, he revealed that he was aware of a compromising tape involving Nipsey. He didn't hold back, painting a picture of a scene that many believed was intended to destroy the late rapper's meticulously cultivated reputation as a man of loyalty and integrity. According to Wack, the footage depicted Nippy in a situation that, if accurate, would not only shock his fans but also seriously hurt his family and close associates.
In his career, bro, Nipsey got bro. Also, this stuff we got all the footage.
Wow.
He paying baby mama with him. His baby mama sucking other.
Fans responded to the recording with a mixture of incredulity and indignation. For Nippy followers, this was a flagrant try to overthrow a person they see as a representation of defiance and independence.
Thanks for you on deck. Do you hear how he's talking about Nipsey, how he had a tape, how he was blackmailing him? This is the devil of high.
It was the sort of charge that might tear apart the well-woven web of deference that's sensing the reaction against his position as their provocateur. Nippy, who had established himself not just as a rapper but also as a family man and community leader, doubled down in a heated discussion with DJ Vlad, nearly daring his detractors to call his bluff. "You better not never question what comes out of my mouth," he growled. "I got $1 million on it. You want to bet?"
One thing you better not never do is question what come out of my mouth. You worth a lot of money. I got $5 million. You want to bet?
The arrogance in it.
His voice was blatantly arrogant, a poorly veiled insult to anybody who dared to speak. Contests his account of events, but as the days turned into weeks, business leaders' opposition became more vocal. Even those who had remained silent during Wack's previous arguments felt compelled to voice their outrage. They called him out for what they perceived to be a willful act of sabotage despite his growing criticism. Longtime friends of Nippy and even casual listeners lined up to denounce Wack's words, saying that they were a breach of an unwritten code and a betrayal of the dead that crossed every conceivable line of respect. In a series of angry Instagram posts, Wack refused to back down. He ridiculed his critics, challenged anyone to disprove him, and asserted that the tape's existence was indisputable, implying the involvement of Nip's former associates. He also dismissed the outcry as mere noise from fans who were unwilling to face the truth. The first baby mom featured on these recordings has never once spoken.
Only because of me that the tape still ain't came out today. But anybody want to challenge me to these things? You notice that the first baby mama who starred in these tapes has never one time said
Wack100 is...
I might have profited much from these things, but I've been the one who has refused to the ground beneath. Wack was shifting in the close-knit circles of Crennan Lawson. But even as he dug in his heels, his words carried the weight of a death sentence to those who had bled and fought alongside Nippy. This wasn't just a publicity stunt. It was a declaration of war, and it marched back as an enemy, a man who had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. As the months went by, the tape never materialized, and many started to doubt its existence, which only served to deepen the hatred. You would think that Wack100 would stop here, but he continued to explain the sequence of events that resulted in Nippy's murder, characterizing it as a moment created by the perverse logic of street codes. He portrayed Eric Holder as a man who was pushed to the brink rather than as a heartless murderer. Holder was a JCAT, a word taken from prison lingo for prisoners who had serious mental health problems. In his account, individuals who have lost their temper due to their circumstances, Holder was a guy whose lifelong physical suffering, humiliation, and the oppressive strain of the streets drove him to an irrevocable moment of wrath. When Nippy labeled Holder a snitch, the reasoning was straightforward, if not profoundly unnerving. It wasn't only an insult. In the perverted mathematics of gang life, that one word is a bullet in the chamber, a public symbol of disgrace that necessitates an answer. The response was quick and harsh, and many people thought that the public explanation erased Nip's humanity and dismissed a life he had worked so hard to create. The streets erupted in rage as Wack's remarks were interpreted by Nippy's friends, fans, and fellow Crips as a direct assault on the late rapper's legacy and a backhanded suggestion that Nippy had somehow invited death. Framing the murder as a justified response to a perceived slight was a level of disrespect that even seasoned gangsters found difficult to tolerate. Given the fate of earlier provocateurs, Wack100's remarks sparked something much more serious than mere rage among Nip's supporters. Disrespect doesn't simply go away. It remains and ultimately demands an answer. The streets were listening, and they didn't like what they heard in the unvarnished and uncontrolled realm of gang politics. But in contempt is more than simply words. It lingers like explosives, ready to ignite. The thing is, Nippy wasn't just any. He was the community's face, the man who kept Chaw cool while keeping it real. He wasn't some myth or a legend to them. He was flesh and blood, a visionary who returned to the streets that shaped him. Disrespecting him wasn't just about clashing with his legacy. It was about poking at the raw wound that his death left behind. People remember what happened to Indian Red Boy. That incident is now etched into the street lore, a warning of how quickly disrespect can turn deadly in Indian culture. Although Red wasn't the one who vandalized Nip's painting, he was guilty by association since he co-signed it days later while grinning into his phone and joking with his pal Baby Capone. This was also on Instagram Live. His life ended in a brutal flash. He was shot 12 times on camera, blood soaking his shirt, his voice a weak rasp, trying to say Hawthorne through lungs that wouldn't hold air. Capone, on the other end of the video call, was stunned into silence, trying to process how his friend had just died right before his eyes. The police called it the walk-up shooting. Someone had gotten the drop on him, walked straight up and pulled the trigger execution style in the streets. The message was clear. This was retaliation. Disrespecting Nipsey Hussle had cost Indian Red Boy his life, and that wasn't the first time it happened either. There are other stories whispered more than shouted about people who couldn't keep Nip's name out of their mouths and pay the price. Sometimes it's a beating, sometimes worse. People who love Nip are not playing around. Any slight against him is a slight against everyone who holds his legacy close. They protect his memory the way they would protect their own brother because, to them, that's what he was. Because of this, Wack100 is viewed as a marked man, and the tension is higher than ever, no matter how long he has played the game or how many connections he claims to have. Entering Nip's hood with those words on his record would be like entering the lion's den while wearing a steak necklace. There is no real buffer when the streets Decide that you have crossed the line, and Wack has done so multiple times. Even when he visited Novo, he ran into some members of the role from the 1960s, and
I said to what? Cause see, I know who did the play. You don't. You ain't from here. You from here?
Bruh, my family from here. My family.
No.
Wack may have a lot to say, but the man snapped because he wasn't from those blocks and you weren't from here. Attempted to push back by showing off his affiliations and contacts, but it failed. Knowing the proper people wasn't a free pass. The man on the other end made plain. The words "you aren't even from out here, boy," were hurled back with contempt. His voice was tinged with annoyance, but the man didn't flinch. "You can do that," he shot back, almost daring Wack to test those connections. Wack never wanted to back down and kept pushing, boasting about his connections and the calls he could make and the power he claimed to hold. "My family's from here. You want to meet in the 60s? Do you want to pull up?" Wack attempted to shift the focus back to industry politics by framing the incident as a misunderstanding, but the damage was already done. It was a direct challenge with a barely veiled threat that hovered in the air. Wack might believe that. His reputation is impenetrable, and that his affiliations are strong enough to protect him. But the streets don't care about previous favors or industrial ties. The 1960s had marked him, if not for violent revenge, then at least for a permanent spot on the wrong side of their regard.